Hi guys, it's Nina from VRFocus. I am here at VRDC joined by
Aruna Intersin, Creative Director and Visual Effects Supervisor at Digital Domain.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about what you discussed today at VRDC. I know that you've got some pretty awesome NBA apps.
Sure, yeah. So over the past year and a half now, we developed a NBA app for the NBA in conjunction with Google and Digital Domain. This app allows us to watch NBA legends as they're interviewed in stereoscopic 360.
And what's the difference for that? Like, how does it make you feel when you're in there?
Well, one of the criteria that we wanted to put forward is the intimacy of VR, to allow a person looking at this experience to actually have that connection with that person. And in stereo VR, you can definitely do that. So all our hosts and our legends are within 5 feet to you, and they engage you in conversation. They won't directly address you, but at least they'll acknowledge that you're in the room, which is something that is very hard to do these days in VR, and to have it at a high fidelity.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And like, what's the feedback so far? How many people went through the experience?
So far, I mean, our metrics have been really, really good. The engagement has been really awesome. We're finding that people want shorter experiences. Right now, 10 minutes is a little bit longer for a VR experience, but at the same time, the content is where we need it to be, and people are engaged in that content pretty well. So yeah, I'm super excited for it as it moves forward, and we get more metrics once it goes off of the Daydream platform into even more VR platforms. It's pretty cool.
So it's only for the Daydream right now?
Right now, yeah.
And you'll be going to other platforms in the near future?
Absolutely. So season 1 was last year, so you can only imagine what season 2 might be, right? Then there's a lot more VR opportunity, VR platforms that we can go to. And so those discussions are happening right now, and we'll figure out where it goes. So that's pretty kind of cool.
And is sports an area that you guys at Digital Domain are particularly interested in bringing virtual reality to that space?
I think we're excited about partnering with people that have that same inkling and that hope of VR. So it doesn't have to be necessarily sports. It could be comedy. It could be technology. It could be something like a G4. So we're open to all people coming to us and figuring out what is a cool way to immerse yourself in VR and make that out to the consumers. So that's, yeah.
And with Digital Domain, do you guys do true VR, or do you lots of 360 films, or if it's a range of various things?
We do a bunch, yeah. So we do a bunch. So we have a real-time VR team, VR and AR team, that I'm kind of helping lead. We have our live broadcast team that does 360 monoscopic broadcasts of things like UFC, Macy's Day Parade, X Games was a recent one. So those are curated 360 feeds with overlays of talent and scores. So it's really quite cool. In addition, we have our pre-rendered team as well, which does stereoscopic 360 in high fidelity with pre-rendered components like through Maya and Nuke, and getting those looking really good that you can't do in real time. So we have a huge gamut of different capabilities, so it's pretty cool.
I mean, so how young are you guys? How did you guys start out? You guys are based out in LA.
That's right, yes.
How did it happen that you guys decided, let's do VR, let's do it, let's do something amazing?
So DD has always been kind of on the cutting edge of technology. We had a really great water system a long time ago with Titanic, and moving forward on that. We won Oscars for our digital human work in Benjamin Buttons in 2007 or 8, maybe 9, something like that. But also, so we're at the forefront of technological innovation, and VR was one of those next steps of trying to go forward into an emerging market, right? Nobody knows exactly how to make money or what flies and what doesn't. And so we had a couple projects by directors coming in because they have heard about VR and they wanted to get into it. And so they said, okay, let's go to DD because they're starting to lead the market as a high-end visual effects company, and maybe we can make high-end visual effects in virtual reality.
So do you think you guys coming from visual effects, that you understood what virtual reality was a little bit better than other industries, because you understood sort of the mixing of the real and the mixing of the special effects and putting them together?
Exactly. I mean, we're movie makers. Magic movie makers, so we make things that don't exist into reality. And part of my job was to try to create a reality that doesn't exist in VR. So a lot of my heavy work was in creating photoreal visual effects in 360. And so one of the first projects that we completed that was fully kind of digital like that was the Neymar Jr. experience from 2015. And from there, it just blossomed into creating more high-end visual effects. And I think there are a couple companies in town that do that do high-end visual effects in 360. And then now, even more so here at VRDC, there's a lot more of that real-time VR. right? And real-time VR is kind of where you get that immersion and presence, and you can walk around the room,
Yeah.
right? The 6 degrees of freedom. So we're starting to develop on that too. And we're, again, as a big company, it takes a little bit longer as bigger companies go. But at the same time, you have to move the entire ship. Smaller ships can go very quickly. And so I come here to see where all the rest of the technology is and talk to people about how I can move this big ship, right? It's one of the challenges, but at the same time, it's very innovative because we have a longer lifespan than most, a longer outlook and future proofing, that we can do.
So what have you seen personally, as seeing as digital domain is on the cutting edge of technology? What are you most excited about with regards to storytelling that could really change the way VR is consumed?
I think right now there's a lot of this kind of narrative, choose your own adventure style that is coming into focus. At the same time, it's still that's a directable avenue for VR. But there are other things like the Rick and Morty thing that I saw Alchemy Labs just do. They're creating an experience that happens in a world, and it's not necessarily choose your own adventure, it's explore your own adventure. And you can follow the rules or not. So that's kind of, I think, where it's going to go to keep people immersed in VR. And very much like Lone Echo has that same type of feel, a lot of these kind of exploratory games. And I feel that's where VR will shine. You go into VR to escape your own reality and experience something else. Sometimes you don't necessarily want a narrative-driven story, you just want to have the experience. And a lot of our immersive media technology for live streaming, you're not interactive, but you're there because you want to see something you've never seen before. So that's kind of, I think, where it's going to go, and that's just, on the VR side of things,
So what other projects are you working on now? What are you hoping to work on in the future?
Ooh, so many things. Let's see what I can talk about. So NBA, of course, season 1's wrapped. There's some inkling on the horizon for another season. We're doing a lot of internal development for our own IP, original content that we're doing. So there was a project that I did a year and a half ago and that I'm doing that's branching out into the Chinese market now. Ooh. So DD has
Why the Chinese market?
Well, half owned by the Chinese, right? Or we are owned by the Chinese, right? It's half owned, or it's fully owned. Our content studio division has formed in alliances with partnerships in China to create location-based entertainment kiosks. Mm-hmm. We had a press release earlier where these location-based entertainment kiosks contain self-contained pods, VR pods, right? So when you go to experience at this mall or wherever it is, there are about 20 of these pods, and you go in and you have a VR experience. These VR experiences vary in nature from 5 to 10 minutes, and some of them are original content and some of them are licensed content.
Okay.
So it's kind of another avenue of revenue where we're making content to go to the Chinese market, right? So that's one of the things that I'm working on, is trying to figure out what content will be good for the Chinese market. We're also working on some of our same licensing deals that we're having here in the States. So Voltron Vr was just released, or is going to be released on Tuesday, and that was a licensing deal with DreamWorks. So we did a lot of the work and licensing from that company. And then, of course, there's a bunch of under NDA stuff that I can't talk about that are with other big 3-letter agencies that are not the NBA, but they're also big. So all that's coming within the next 6 months. So this summer is, what am I saying? This fall is going to be super, super exciting. It's
incredible.
Going to be, yeah.
And you're talking about all of these amazing experiences, but
yeah.
your personal, if you had unlimited amount of resources, unlimited amount of money, what would you do? What was your dream application or experience that you'd love to make?
That's really interesting. I think a combination of VR and AR immersion, where the things you do in AR with your phone affect the VR world that somebody else is playing with. Kind of like a multiplayer VR AR situation. And I think putting that into the social aspect and having people go around the city doing something in AR, and then somebody in VR trying to figure out where you've hidden that box, like a scavenger hunt, something like that. I think making a multiplayer game, I guess, in the real world, and then having the virtual world mimic that to a certain degree, I think would be kind of cool.
That is so trippy.
Yeah, so it's
like going in and out of the Matrix.
Yeah, like you're here and what happens in what happens here and what happens there. So the persistence between both those two worlds, I think, would be kind of cool. And I think something like that is kind of like what happened with Pokemon, right?
Yeah.
Pokemon Go, where you go to certain real locations and there something happens. But to take that a step further and have the incorporation of all those realities, real reality via marketing, augmented reality via your phone, and virtual reality for people at home, I think amalgamating all that into one cohesive story or one cohesive, campaign or experience, I think it's going to be really powerful. So,
Do it.
Sure.
Do it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm all for it.
Are there any tips for people out there who are looking to create sort of like the next big thing, like a new VR, like a really immersive experience? Would you say like, this is something I would definitely dedicate my time to, and this is something I would not touch because it's not the right way of dealing with this problem?
I think if you want to create an immersive experience, you should take in immersive experiences. Like all the games that are out there now, these experiences, play them, look at what they did right, what they did wrong, how you can embellish those. I mean, we're in the world of making your own reality now, so anything goes. I think on that front, most of where the technology is going is more real time, more immediate feedback. I think the time for 360 video is dying or has died, but there is still some power there to be at a ball game that you can't be. Until you can get volumetric capture of the actual NBA game, there's going to be still something valuable about sitting in that seat and watching something at the front row. So I don't think that's going to go away just yet, but a lot of these 360 videos may have a limited lifespan, I think. People, and if they live on, it'll be for short consumption devices on the Facebooks and YouTubes of the world, where you can see it very quickly and you move on. So we'll see where it goes. That's kind of where I would focus on.
No, that's good. That's good. Where do we go to find out more information about your projects and all of the work that's coming out in the next few months?
Sure. If you're interested in our VR work, you can go to vr.digitaldomain.com, and that takes you to an Android app or an iOS app that you can download and see all our stereoscopic and monoscopic content, both licensed and original IP. And then if you want to look at the feature films and commercials that we do, it's just digitaldomain.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Yeah.
And head over to VRFocus.com if you want to find out any more about what they're up to, and I will see you there.